Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Kickin' Bass TV. Today's video, gonna be talking about our top 5 baits for November bass fishing. Give you guys a few tips on how to catch more fish this time of year. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. Let's go. All right, guys, it's officially November. Now that the fall transition has come and gone, we're gonna talk about the heart of fall bass fishing, talk about lure selection, building patterns, because it can be a frustrating time of year, but if there's one thing you should focus on to catch more bass during the fall, that's the bait fish. Regardless of whether you're fishing a lake that's got a shad population or you're on a lake with no shad where a primary forage will be some type of panfish like bluegill or perch, maybe you're on a highland reservoir where your bass are offshore feeding on craw. They all have one thing in common, and that's that those baits are actively on the move. Temps haven't gotten low enough for the bass or the bait that they're feeding on to slow down quite yet. So today we're gonna talk primarily about moving baits, power fishing techniques, but also a couple of finesse techniques, all of which should help you effectively catch more bass during the fall. First thing I want to talk about are underspins and spinnerbaits, because these are great bait fish imitators during the fall. The Divine Underspin and the Owner Flashy Swimmer are a couple of my go-tos in that department. When it comes to spinnerbaits, I typically reach for a larger 3/8 or half-ounce size at least, because I'm not only looking to utilize a spinnerbait to draw a feed bite during the fall, but a reaction bite as well. And that's exactly what we did here. This particular lake, I don't have shad or necessarily any fish that would match the profile of this all-white bait that we're throwing, but not only creates a high level of contrast on the green stained water conditions that we have here, but also you've got the added thump, the vibration, the flash that those blades create, all of which are contributing factors to why this is one of my favorite baits to throw, not only during the fall, but year round. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, we were doing some early morning fishing, throwing a half-ounce spinner, trying to match the profile of the bluegill that I know these bass feed on in this particular body of water. Not only that, but we've got most of these reeds starting to die off and turn brown, but this particular corner, a patch of reeds that's holding on still, a little bit of green to them, that's going to create a little bit richer oxygen level in that particular area of the lake. It's going to make a lot of those bigger bass tend to hold to that area a little bit longer into the fall. That's what led to us catching our biggest bass of the season so far, over 6.5 pounds. Came up and hammered that spin bait, and if I'm not reaching for a square bill or a lipless first thing in the morning to get a reaction bite, I'm throwing a spinnerbait. What makes an underspin so useful around bait fish is it's going to help you stand out amongst the crowd. As you can see, literally hundreds of other fish here. Easily something like this to get lost in the mix. If I were to fish this without the blade as those fish scatter, greatly decrease your chances of success. If you want to catch more fish during the fall feed up, it's all about that blade. That's going to create extra flash, extra vibration, that when those bait fish scatter, it's going to help those bass key in on your lure, increasing your chances of success and helping you catch a lot more fish during the fall feed up. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Once you have a visual on the bait ball, you can watch those bass, kind of keep them corralled, and then you just got to throw in and around the vicinity of those bait fish, wait for those feeders to come up and strike. After that, probably the most effective way to cover water quickly and locate bass in the fall is with a crankbait arsenal. Shallow, mid-depth, and deep divers, things like my 5XDs, 6XDs, and my fat-free shads are some of the first things I'll reach for during the fall feed up. Whether I'm fishing an unfamiliar lake, I don't know where bass are staging, or I'm on a familiar body of water but just having trouble building a pattern, these are the most effective things. Get out there, target those offshore bass, find out where they're grouping. After that, then I can pick things apart by slowing it down, getting finessey, throwing jigs, shaky head worms, Texas rig craws, and other plastics. But until then, if I'm not reaching for a spinnerbait or underspin, I'm usually reaching first and foremost for my crankbaits. Target those reaction bites early and late in the day, and also to locate those offshore bass. Another thing that's key this time of year is focusing on pinch points, areas where fish can ambush prey, secondary points where basically they're moving in reverse from where they did for the pre-spawn, because they're going to be transitioning from those summer holes, those shallow waters, over to those deep water holes for the winter here in a month or so. But between now and then, they're going to spend a lot of time in these transition areas, and this is effectively a doorway to that only finger and cove of this lake. And if you've got features like that, you want to take advantage of them. And just like that, we're working shallow dive and square bill in a baby bass pattern right through that pinch point, and we got another one. Next up, I'm going with lipless cranks and blade baits, which I'm gonna put in the same category because I kind of use them as a 1-2 punch and fish them the same way through the fall. I like to utilize that yo-yo technique, which if you followed the channel long enough, you've probably seen one of our previous videos talking about that technique and why it's so useful, especially leading into the later, colder season, because not only is it a great way to mimic dying bait fish, weaken bait fish in colder water temps, but it's also a great way when you're not getting that feed bite response to draw a reaction bite, because using a rattle lipless like we tend to use, yo-yoing through the column like that is not only going to give you more of a strike zone area to work, but also create more noise and vibration, which those bass are going to respond to, and oftentimes very aggressively during the fall. So if I'm not having any success throwing the lipless, which I generally do during the early to mid fall, all I'm going to do is switch to my blade bait, which is essentially going to be fished the same way. Like I said, I'm going to yo-yo that through the column, although it will tend to fall through the water column about twice the fall rate of a typical lipless crankbait with the full body, because it's slimmer, it's heavier. As you can see, it's got a short shank hook on there. For that reason, I like to use the Acme V rods, because not only do I like the design of the body, but the strength of those short shank treble hooks on there. Being that this is a smaller profile, it's gonna get a lot of bites, but a lot of time, if you get into a bigger bass, that's where you start to see trouble without upgrading the hardware. You didn't have to upgrade the hardware at all with the V-Rod blade baits. They've got super strong steel shank, short shank treble hooks on there. And as you can see, first one on the blade bait, almost 1.5 pounds bigger than the one we just caught on the lipless, which was twice its size. Once you've located those suspended offshore bass during the fall, you want to pick those groups apart and you're not getting bit as much on the crankbait. That's when I'll slow things down and throw either a shaky head worm or something like a jig paired with a craw trailer. Now, typically, I will throw half a craw on here as a downsized profile, and this is a perfect thing whether you're on a highland reservoir targeting offshore bass, holding the rock piles that are more often than not feeding on crawfish, or you're just fishing a local pond or lake that doesn't have a shad population and one of the main forages tends to be craw. You can either mimic a bait fish this through the column on the move, or slow things down, hop it along the flats, rocky edges, and really pick them apart. Last but not least is going to be a Texas rig craw. This is a big confidence bait for me, so much so that I designed my own craw. It's one of the reasons we started Kick and Bass Custom Baits. If you guys have fished with the Kick and Craw, you already know how lethal these things are, whether you're slow rolling them across the bottom in the winter months or keeping them moving during the spring and summer. It's a very versatile, highly effective tool to have 365 days a year. And right here, it's just early fall morning. It's chilly, but we had some snowfall the night before, meaning that the barometric pressure is still relatively low enough for these bass to be confidently moving around in the low light hours. And just like that, just fishing that craw, mid column, medium slow retrieve, right here in the corner of the lake, right before the sun popped up. And as you can see, this guy came up very aggressive and just smashed that craw. As you can see, ripped the claws clean off of it, danced about 10 feet across the water as he was trying to spit it out. But that's one of the reasons why this is a go-to bait for me year round. Regardless of the time of year, the type of fishery we're on, you can always catch something on a craw. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Hopefully this will help you guys get out and catch more fish this fall, because I know some of you have been struggling. And if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit that like button for me down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, because that's the best way to show your support. I'd love to hear from you guys, so don't hesitate to leave me a comment in the comment section down below. And if you guys are interested in ordering any custom baits from me, do me a favor, hit the link in the video description down below. That will take you to our Instagram page, where you can check out all of our available bait options and place an order. Until next time, guys, I'm D with Kickin' Bass TV.
Subscribe.